What's happening, guys? Happy Sunday and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we're going to do a mock draft, but not any old mock draft. We're going to do a mock draft and we're going to give you a comp. I love doing player comps. We're going to go current players, former players, players that some of you may be too young to have ever heard of, but I know who you have heard of, and that's my co-host tonight. It is not Jerry. It is Mr. Dan Williamson. If you don't know Dan, you can find him. You can find him everywhere. You can find me, Twitter. You can find him at Overhyped Sleeper. Drop the last E in Sleeper. He writes for PlayerProfiler. He podcasts for PlayerProfiler. He's been on this show before. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Oh, appreciate you having me, Randall. It's just always a blast to chop it up with you. So, been too long, but it always seems like it goes that way. There's so many people you want to get on shows with, and it's hard to fit everybody in. So, appreciate you having me on. Loving it.
Yeah, for sure. It is hard. I actually reached out to Casey Myers from the FF Dynasty and Bradley Stalder. You know Bradley. You guys did a little show together here on the Player Profiler. And dude, everybody's booked right now. It's like, hey, man, I said, hey, Casey, we got to do a podcast. And he's like, man, I'm slammed until after the draft. So we are going to do a mock draft. We are going to do all that. But Dan, tell us, man, what have you got going on? We're going to talk about your article here in a minute. You've been doing some podcasts. What's going on in the life of Dan?
Yeah, so I'm doing the Stack Hunters podcast with Bradley. And we've been kind of every other week, but we're probably going to be ramping up to weekly pretty soon. And that's just basically a best ball podcast. Later on in the year, I'll be doing the Fantasy Empire with Chris Vaccaro, Nelson Sousa, and Matt Modica, three high stakes guys. And we do all sorts of season-long high stakes contests. And, I'm writing for Player Profiler, as you said, out there on the streets and Twitter. And just generally, you'll find me in draft rooms almost anywhere at almost any time.
Yeah, and I failed to mention that Dan is one of the highest high stakes players around, and I'm not putting him over. What are the big trends you're seeing right now in high stakes? Really, from a dynasty standpoint, I know you do a bunch of FFPC. We'll hear from them later in the show. But what are the trends that maybe you're seeing in best ball or startups right now at the high stakes level?
Yeah, it's really kind of a mixed bag right now. Because we had such a weird year with none of the running backs getting hurt last year. And so people are just sort of reacting to it in all sorts of different ways. Some people are just like, hey, it's going to be, we're going to be right back to RB0. And, that's how I'm going to run my dynasty teams. That's how I'm going to, do my best ball teams, all that. There are others who are just very, very robust running back. But there's a lot of, the one thing that's definitely a constant across everything is there's a lot of fear and loathing about this new class coming in of running backs just because of what it's going to upset so many veterans. So it makes it really tough to try to figure out what the value of those veteran players is. And also, we just, without knowing the landing spots, the rookie running backs could be all over the map. I think after the draft happens, it's going to be a real, like shaking the Etch-a-Sketch as far as like our rookie rankings and everything else.
Yeah, I could see, especially in best ball, because, we don't have a fast draft spot this week, but, on fast draft, it's like, you're just banking on good landing spots, and if they get it, awesome. And if not, you hope they can earn their way on the field, because the first thing you're hoping for is touches. In any kind of best ball fantasy format, you're just looking for touches. If you get no touches, if you get no targets, you get no points. You get no points. They're no good for me in my dynasty roster. Dan, I mentioned an article that you've just written. I want to hear more about it, but let's go ahead and hear from the FFPC.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
You cannot be a Podfather live read. It was weird. A couple weeks ago, Matt was on the show with me, just like you are tonight. And it's weird to hear him do the live read and then you come back to him. Like, it's no problem, with you or Jerry or, next week we've got a guest lined up for next week as well. But he does such a good job with those. But Dan, something you've done a great job with is an article you wrote recently over at PlayerProfiler. And correct me if I'm wrong, no paywall. They can go right to playerprofiler.com right now. They can read this article. The article is Dynasty Draft Startup Strategy, 6 Rules for Dynasty Startups. And guys, like I mentioned earlier, Dan plays super high stakes Dynasty best ball. So when he gives you tips, especially for free, you want to go check that out. Dan, give us one of the 6. We're not going to give them all 6. They got to go to Player Profiler if they want 2 through 6. But give them one. Maybe not your favorite one, but give us one.
All right. I am going to give you one of my favorite ones. I think it's one of the bigger edges that you can get. And that is, when you are in your startup, some people are trading for the future draft picks. Some people are trading those future draft picks away, because they want to be win now teams. I think you can, even if you want to play a win now strategy, trading for those future draft picks, especially early in the draft, makes a ton of sense, because basically what it does is it gives you liquid assets. And that's what you want, because you know what? None of us have a crystal ball. None of us can really, I play, I think, a pretty good Dynasty game. I know that you play a very good Dynasty game, Randall. And, it's just, it's one of those things that, we still get a ton of stuff wrong. We can make our best guesses, but an injury comes along or a trade or whatever, or just, the coaching staff doesn't use a player right. And poof, something that you thought was going to be a sure thing goes up in smoke. But what doesn't go up in smoke is the value of a late first or an early second round draft pick in the next draft, or even in the, you can trade back within the draft, and say, hey, I'm gonna trade away my second round pick in the startup draft, and I'm gonna get a 5th, a 6th, and a 9th, or something like that. And what that does is it just allows you to react a little bit better, because you know what, most of those players up at the top of the drafts, you got to get a couple of them, but you don't need to load up on all of them, because a lot of them aren't going to do nearly as well as people think. And the more you can recognize, hey, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know exactly which players are going to make it and which ones aren't, then I'm just going to use this, all of this liquid gold basically that I've got in draft picks, and I'll use it later on in the startup draft. I'll use it as the season starts. You know what? Because all I need to do is I need to just be competitive the first few weeks, and I can kind of see where my team is going. And you know what? If I made some bad bets on players, maybe I want to flip it over and I want to turn it into a, I'm going to just do a little bit of a renovation here, and we'll try to compete next year. Or I might say, hey, I've got, I got a pretty good core. Things are working out pretty well, but I'm going to need to add some guys. If I've already spent all my picks for next year, I can't do that. But when I have extra picks, I can do that and still be able to draft in the rookie draft next year.
Yeah, and you'll see the value of having extra picks in the next month and a half as we get into rookie. Like right now, we're going to do a mock draft here in just a couple of minutes, but you will see the value of picks only go up. And again, whether you're win now, and I tell people all the time, you can use those first like currency. It's literally a liquid market. Hey, I'm in the middle of the season. It's week 7. I'm 6-1. I just lost a starting running back. I can use that future first to go out and use that. The same way you would go into a store and buy something you need with cash, you can use that rookie pick and you can go buy what you need in season. It's always good to stack future first. If you're a savvy drafter, which Dan is, you can trade back, pick up that first, and still draft a win now team, because you don't fall for the sizzle. You don't fall for the big thing that I see is that people fall into the, hey, I'm going in here with a plan, and they don't stick to it.
Right.
You got to show up. You got to have a plan. But that is what Dan is writing about. He's actually got another article on Player Profiler right now as well. 7 ridiculous wide receiver bargains in FFPC tournaments. So find, and it's free. I'm literally on the site right now. You can go right there. You go to Player Profiler. Across the top, it says Fantasy Home, articles. Search to your little heart's content. You can get the other 5 of Dan's 6 startup things. But Dan, these people have tuned in. They've tuned in for a mock draft, and I'm really glad you're here. They're probably sick of hearing Jerry and I's takes and drafting, but I wanted to do one last mock draft with all the information we had before the NFL draft, but I want to throw a little twist. I want to throw just a little twist at you, in that I want you to hit me with a comp. Like I said, Dan and I have been watching the football 30, 40, and I say the football like a true old guy, because I am. But like the NFL, we've watched it forever. Like I remember watching it in the late 80s, early 90s. And you see things with certain players, and it's like we did this last year. Like I forget who it was, but I had a comp to Larry Johnson. A lot of you newer listeners and viewers probably have no clue of who Larry Johnson is. But if you throw him in YouTube and you watch some Larry Johnson Chief highlights, you'd be like, oh. Or watch him coming out of Penn State, you'd be like, oh, that's not a bad comp for this guy. So we may not go back to the 90s, but we may go to someone in the league, and it may not be best case scenario. I'm going to hit you with my my Matthew Golden one later, but Dan, I'm gonna defer to you. Do you want the bunny? I'm gonna go ahead and pull up our draft board, so people, if you're watching on Player Profiler, yes, that's right, we're back on Player Profiler. They wanted us back on Player Profiler. I guess they wanted to keep a high bar on Player Profiler Now Plus, so they sent me back to Player Profiler. I say all that in jest because I love both. I love both YouTube channels. I think they're really just trying to stick more to news. Like now, news, kind of the same thing. So if it's now, it's now. But Dan, I'm going to defer to you. Do you want the 101, or do you want me to take the 101 because there's a guy that maybe you want to go at too?
Yeah, you can go ahead and take the 101. I mean, I feel like we all probably know who this is going to be, but you know,
it's super interesting. Because you guys maybe you guys haven't heard of this guy. He's really good. His name's Ashton Genty. He went to Boise State. And Dan, I say all that jokingly, but would you agree Genty is a lock 101 across the board, no questions asked, regardless of format?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be the way that it goes. I mean, I cannot really imagine any scenario where that's not the case, because I mean, we have some certainty over where you know, the top quarterback is going to go. We feel like we have some pretty good certainty over how high Genty is going to go. So you know, nothing else is changing. I mean, you know, and all of their, you know, we know what these players' skill sets are, and that's factoring very heavily right now. So I just can't see it changing.
All right, I'm going to hit you with my comp, and then I'm going to hit you with the Player Profiler comp. Player Profiler says LaDainian Tomlinson. I can't go LaDainian Tomlinson. If you're a younger listener, maybe you're 25. Thank you for checking out the Dynasty WarZone and Player Profiler. But LT, Hall of Famer, was the man coming out of TCU. Electric. He was winning fantasy leagues long before Christian McCaffrey was even in high school. This guy was a fan. Dan, you know what I'm talking about. He was a fantasy killer. I don't see that. I see a guy that actually went to Boise State. I see a little bit more Doug Martin. And that's not a bad comp. Doug Martin had a good NFL career. I think he's Doug Martin plus. I would lean more toward the LaDainian Tomlinson comp, but without true combine metrics, which a lot of guys have, it makes some of these comps tougher. I think somewhere between, I don't think anyone's going to be another LaDainian Tomlinson. Like, he was like borderline, you got the 101, you won the league because he stayed healthy. he dominated the points, especially if you played PPR back in the day, which I always have. I like the Doug Martin comp. They're a similar build. Again, ironically, went to Boise State. So that's going to be the 101. Dan, I'm going to let you go 102, and I'll put this pick on the board.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, and the interesting thing about the comps is too, it seems like a lot of people are always looking for that, the best possible case scenario for the comps, and that's not always how it goes. The one thing I like about the LT comp is just the quality of the prospect, because what we have to remember is that you can be a good prospect and still not hit as an NFL player. Being a good prospect is one thing. Hitting as an NFL player is yet another thing, and often the two are related, but not always. So,
and durable. Don't forget durable.
Right.
He's played in 3 years. He's played 40 college games, so he's averaged 13 games a season. That matters if you're drafting this guy with the 101. You're not drafting a guy with injury baggage. So I think it's great. Dan, 102.
102. Let's go. I'm going to make a structural pick here. Cam Ward. I think that I don't love the pick, but I think that's really where you got to go with the 102 because the potential upside of a quarterback that hits is it's massive. And it's hard to find anybody else that has that kind of upside.
What do you think about Tennessee as a landing spot? It pretty much seems like Tennessee, they canceled the Shedeur Sanders and the Travis Hunter top 30 visit. What do you think about Tennessee as a landing spot for Cam Ward? Do you think the oh my gosh, it's not Canales. Canales is in Carolina, but is it Cunningham? I don't know. His dad was a head coach, but what do you think about that offense for him?
Yeah, it's there are a lot of missing pieces right now. So it's kind of like the Patriots last year with Drake May. I think we're going to have to be patient with Cam Ward, and I think that his skill set gives him enough, where he could go any sort of way. My comp for him is Sam Darnold because he can throw that deep ball. He's pretty fearless. He can move around in the pocket, but not necessarily always looking to run or anything like that. So, and I know a lot of people, you say Sam Darnold and they're like, ooh, awful. But, Darnold was I thought a good prospect. So I don't mind the comp at all.
I don't either. If you look at the thumbnail, if you go to Player Profiler, if you're just an audio podcast listener and you're not driving a vehicle or operating machinery of some point, go to Player Profiler, find this video. It was a live stream. It was on Sunday. Look at the thumbnail. The one that I like is Steve McNair. Steve McNair, former MVP. And it's ironic because I didn't remember Steve McNair being that good. Dude, Steve McNair was that good. And Steve McNair may have been somewhat ahead of his time. A lot of guys could have been like that. I like the Sam Darnold take. Yes, dude, if Sam Darnold coming out of USC, if he was in this draft right now, it would be him or Cam Ward as the QB1 off the board. Sam Darnold was an electric prospect coming out of USC, big arm, and it's taken him 7 years, but it looks like he might have figured some things out. And it's Brian Callahan, by the way. I threw a quick search. Brian Callahan, his dad is the offensive line coach, former NFL head coach. I think he runs a good offense. And, like the Tennessee Titans, you go back and look, how many games did they lose last year because of a Will Levis, hand up, guy I liked, I thought would do well. I think Cam Ward's a solid pick, and I do like the Sam Darnold comp. I was actually going to go him, but this is Superflex. This is tight end premium. I'm going with my guy. I'm going with Omarion Hampton. Matt, ironic, he owns Player Profiler. So if you go to Omarion Hampton on the Player Profiler page, it's like all the rookies and the rankings in the far right-hand column have the quote-unquote my guy. So there's all the content creators have a my guy. Matt chose Omarion Hampton, so you see why I can't have Omarion Hampton, but there are benefits to owning the company. I love this guy. I still think the gap between him and Ashton Genty is much closer than people think. And then I think there's a pretty sizable gap between the next guy in line. He's a big guy. He's a really good pass catcher. I think the absolute ceiling is like a Nick Chubb plus. Some of, and I can go a little bit older, maybe a different style, but this was a big running back. And Omarion Hampton's a big running back. He's faster than this guy, but Steven Jackson played for the Rams, had a cup of coffee with the Atlanta Falcons. You go back and look at Steven Jackson. That dude had good hands for a man that size at the running back position. Good blocker. He's going to get on the field right away. I've seen him going as high as 12 to the Cowboys, and I've seen him going as low as 21 to the Broncos. Please beat the Broncos. I love Omarion Hampton. Dan, anything on Omarion Hampton before you pick at 104?
Yeah, I think that's a good comp. My comp for him was Mixon. Just a guy who's, a big guy, got decent speed, can catch the ball pretty well, and that sort of fits. I think he's a guy who can be a workhorse back in the NFL, and you never see an absolute just straight out bell cow anymore, hardly at all. But Hampton could be that guy if a team needed him to be.
All right, hit us with that 104.
All right, yeah, we're probably still staying very close to chalk, but I got to go Tut McMillan here. That's just it's too easy. I am a sucker for a big, rangy wide receiver who, can move well and, has a good catch radius and everything else. I mean, somebody his size that moves like him, I think is, just can be a fantastic asset. They don't always hit, but when they do, they tend to be really good hits. Probably this is a little bit more recent, but Drake London is probably my comp for him here.
Yeah, and that would be the player profiler comp. The only physically, yes, I think the physical attributes are the same. My only pushback is I think Drake London's a lot better route runner than Tet, at least coming out. Tet could really flash that particular skill set when he gets there. But everything else, I agree. The size, the catch radius, the athleticism. And Jerry mentioned this, and I kind of like it. He's got a little Cortland Sutton to his game when he can go up and he can get, I think in the red zone, I think, and there's a little Mike Evans to his game, and if you were to smash up, all the guys that we've mentioned, London, Evans, little T Higgins, that big body boundary wide receiver plus, I think if you get Drake London, you're happy. I think you don't want the wide receiver one to be Cortland Sutton, but when healthy, Cortland Sutton's been a solid wide receiver two his entire career. And if you tell me, because we've all had a lot of stinker rookie picture, hoping for more upside, but if you wind up with a guy who gives you 15 PPR points a game for the better part of a 5 to 7 year run, you wouldn't be disappointed. But I think the ceiling's much, much higher. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go 105. And then this one right here for me would be very, very, very roster dependent. Like if I'm on the clock at 105, there's a quarterback I could go. There's two running backs I really like here. But because it is tight end premium and I'm infatuated with this guy, I'm going to go Tyler Warren. I absolutely love this guy. My comp for him, I've said it before on the show, it's Gronk. And I know there's only been one Gronk, but I liked him even more. The Podfather had a guy from your area, the Minnesota area, Thor Nystrom, on Mind of Mansion this year. I did not know that Tyler Warren was a quarterback in high school, and they converted him to tight end, which just adds into the fact of, hey, why did it take Tyler Warren so long to break out? Well, you're behind Freiermuth, Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, and you're learning a new position in college. Stands to reason you're not going to break out super fast. So when you realize the competition he had to get past as a younger player, and then the fact that he was a quarterback, like he knows where to sit in a zone, he knows how to get down the seam, he knows all those things to be a quarterback's friend. And who do we all automatically say is a quote-unquote quarterback's best friend? It's a tight end. And then you take his size, 6'6", 256 pounds. That is Gronk-esque. We got Mike in the Player Profiler YouTube chat. What are we thinking if Warren goes to the Bears? I'm thinking Cole Kmet. Learn how to speak Charger, buddy, because you're probably going to be out of town. I think you turn Cole Kmet, if Tyler Warren goes to the Bears, you turn Cole Kmet into what Michael Mayer was last year. This guy's going to be a target hog, and I'll answer this next chat question. But Dan, where are you at on Tyler Warren? Again, you play a lot of FFPC, which is tight end premium heavy. What are your thoughts on Tyler Warren? Anything that you've seen crazy with the FFPC?
No, not really. I mean, he's going first in all the best ball drafts as far as the rookie tight ends go, so that's no surprise there. He's generally going around tight end 6 or 7. For me, that's a little aggressive because I think I can probably still get him there after the draft, even if he lands well. And if he doesn't land well, then he might tumble down a little bit. So he's somebody that I just haven't really seen a great need to draft. But yeah, I do like him. I came up with probably a less maybe not quite as good a comp, but I said Dallas Clark. That goes back a ways, but he was a pretty darn good tight end as well. There you go.
Dallas Clark wasn't as big physically,
right?
But if he can run routes and catch the ball like Dallas Clark, I would love it. Every mock draft that I've seen recently seems like he keeps moving up, because you go back to like March, even late February, all of the Zerlines and Kuipers and everything had him going 14 to the Colts, which get a quarterback and that's super duper. But you keep seeing him going higher. I've seen him as high as 7 to the Jets. Yeah. I don't think that he gets past 10 to the Bears. But you know what? People are predicting that the Cowboys are going to use 112 on a wide receiver to go opposite of CeeDee Lamb. I love Jake Turd Ferguson. He's a guy that I've been a proponent of buying for a long time. But I think that's the guy I'd rather have with CeeDee Lamb, kind of give you that Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Sam Laporta type thing. So I dig that. Dan, who are you taking at 106?
All right. Well, you and I were both thinking the same thing at 5. I just went Colston Loveland there rather than Warren. So, and again, that's a little bit of a structural pick because we are talking a tight end premium superflex draft. So I feel like there's going to be enough running backs going later in the draft that I don't necessarily need to push them up. And I think these are far and away the 2 best tight ends. So if I can get one of them, I'm going to be happy with it. I like Loveland because he can really move down the seam. My comp for him is Tyler Eifert.
I love that comp, and again, you're tugging on my heartstrings. You're Tyler Eifert, Notre Dame guy, when healthy, was dominant in Cincinnati without the best quarterback play. Just really, really good. I like that a lot. My only fear with Loveland is I'm kind of getting like Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts vibes. He doesn't really block super great, but he's a pretty good route runner. It's like, I'm not going to be surprised either way with this guy. If this guy goes to the right system, he reunites with Jim Harbaugh and works with Justin Herbert. I love it. If he goes to Denver with Sean Payton, we've seen Sean Payton use tight ends very well as an offensive schemer. I would love that a bunch as well. But I'll be very curious because I think the range of outcomes for this guy is huge.
Watch Atlanta take him to replace Kyle Pitts because they can misuse him in the exact same way.
I would be so sad because the one thing the world needs is more tight ends. All right, man. I'm torn between 2 guys. I'm definitely going running back. I think once you get past Tet McMillan, I'll take a stab at wide receiver much later in the draft. I'm going to go the smaller of the 2 Buckeyes. I'm going to go Travion Henderson. I think last time in this spot I went Quinshawn Judkins. Just love the player. very universal skill set, good blocker, especially for a guy his size. That'll get him on the field in third down in passing situations. And when you're a good pass catcher, I kind of get a little Alvin Kamara to his game. I think he'll get drafted higher than Kamara did when he came out as a rookie. I don't think he'll go as fast as Christian McCaffrey, but I think he fits that vein of like that 5'10", 200-pound, really, really athletic running back that can really do everything. I'm not going to go as far. Like I've heard people say Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not Jahmyr Gibbs. But if he's Alvin Kamara, who's been as consistent a fantasy player, especially in PPR, for the last almost 9 years, I would be in love with that. Dan, what do you think about Henderson? And then you can go ahead with 108.
All right. Yeah, Henderson, I like him a lot. I actually have him the same place you do, ahead of the other Ohio State guy. So my comp for him was Reggie Bush.
I like that. Reggie Bush, I remember him with Sean Payton. Speaking of Sean Payton,
right,
when Reggie Bush was a Saint, that was a good time.
No doubt about it. I'm wondering if Sean Payton remembers that as well. So something to think about.
All right. Fire us away with 108 because I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the other Ohio State guy, Quinshon Judkins. I like his game a lot. I think he's a better pass catcher than a lot of people are giving him credit for. He came out of the gate so hot as a freshman. It was great to see. My comp for him would be Nick Chubb.
Yeah, that's his player profiler comp too. Big, big, fast, 6 foot, 221 pounds, sub 4.5. He's a 4.48 40 guy.
Yep.
Just an absolute monster. Now, is there a landing spot you'd like to see him land in as a pro?
I mean, honestly, I think he's a guy who would fit really well with Dallas in the second round, should they choose to go that way. I wouldn't hate him with the Chargers either. I think that would be a lot of fun.
This will blow people away. I'd love to see him in San Francisco.
Oh,
yeah. I know they got Christian McCaffrey. I know they like Galindo. Was it Guerrero? Yes. I'm drawing a blank here. I'm combining a bunch of names, but I think there's some good picks. All right. Guerrero.
Yes.
I'm thinking of Pedro Guerrero. Anyway, I'm back up. I'm going to go with my wide receiver one in this class. I just see a lot of DJ Moore to his game. So for me, I'm going to go Luther Burden. I'm not worried about his sophomore season. A lot of people, say it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Don't care. Got a little diva to him. I'll be honest. If there's a position in the NFL, I want a little diva to him. It's the wide receiver position. I can't think of too many quote unquote diva wide receivers that really have it panned out. I'm sure there's been a few. I think this guy's super talented. I think he's been the victim of poor quarterback play for a long time. And hopefully he gets paired up with a really good quarterback. I don't know that I would love him in Dallas because, CeeDee Lamb takes all the oxygen in the room. I'd like to see him go to Seattle and really put pressure on a Jackson Smith and Jigba to repeat what he did last year, especially without Geno Smith. But that's my guy, Luther Burden, 109. Dan, thoughts on Burden and then the 110, sir?
Yeah, I like Burden. I think he's got a little Curtis Samuel to him, maybe. He's kind of an interesting player. He's a tough one for me just because the quarterback play was not very good. So, and he probably is going to be playing a lot of slot, but he can get down the field too. So, he's not one of those slot guys that's necessarily going to always be working close to the line of scrimmage. He can get deep and he's got the skills to do something when he does. So, I do like that pick a lot. I'm going to go with wide receiver also. This is a place, we're talking picks 10, 11, 12. That's probably, these are some of the best teams in your league probably that are going to be picking here. And sometimes for those kind of teams, I like to roll the dice a little bit. So I'm going to roll the dice with Travis Hunter.
Did you see this week that he asked when they put when Roger Goodell reads his card at the draft, that he announces him as wide receiver and defensive back. I think this guy's dead set on it. This is not a bad spot to gamble on Travis Hunter, especially pre-draft. Now, if he lands in a team that can use him as a wide receiver, okay. But if he were to go to New England, that would be super great. If he were to go, and I don't think he'll last anywhere near this long, but like the Jets, they've got Garrett Wilson. I do think he'll get you some fantasy points. I think he'll be a lot like his mentor Deion Sanders. I think the majority of his work in the NFL will be as a defensive back, because no offense to wide receivers, but most years the NCAA gives us a bunch of really good ones, and they don't always give us a lot of really good cornerbacks. So I think he'll play a little bit more. I'm on the clock. I'm going to go with a guy that I've said is Najee Harris. So I'm going to go Caleb Johnson. Big guy, already wears black and gold. I think he could be in play for the Steelers. I think he'll most likely wind up being a Bear. But I think Caleb Johnson's a good running back. I think if he were to go to the Bears, they would want him to be in that Ben Johnson offense, what David Montgomery is. I don't know. I know that DeAndre Swift is not Jahmyr Gibbs, but that Ben Johnson offense features 2 running backs. I think Caleb Johnson would be very strong here. And if you're a contender, Dan mentioned this earlier, if you're drafting at the 111, everybody needs running backs. You probably don't. If you won the league or got second in the league, you've probably got wide receivers, because it's hard to win dynasty championships without elite wide receiver production. So to be able to get a guy as talented as Caleb Johnson here with your 111, if you still have your pick, I think that's a steal. Dan, you're right there. You're just north of Iowa. You're in Minnesota, so you've probably seen a lot of Caleb Johnson. What are your thoughts on him, and what are you seeing with him in the high stakes world?
Yeah, I think he's a great battering ram, who can also work in the pass game. I like him a lot. I think that, just because he didn't test as well as the Ohio State guys, he's kind of slipped down, our fantasy rookie boards. And I'm not sure if that's the right thing, because you know what? You don't have to be super fast to be a running back. Speed definitely helps, but we're seeing plenty of slow running backs that are succeeding in the NFL. Kyron Williams, etc. So, and I think Caleb Johnson's got that dog in him. James Conner's my comp for him. I think he's a guy that just has that same kind of bulldog tenacity.
Well, there's an obvious pick here at 112, but I'm gonna let you make it, because I fumbled. I should have taken this guy twice. I think I know where you're going.
All right. I think that I know where you think I'm going, but I'm going somewhere else. I'm gonna go Cam Scattergooboo. I think that he's a fun pick. Another slow guy like Caleb Johnson, not the fastest guy in the world, but man, was he productive in college. And I love to see that productivity on a running back. That just always gets me going. So, yeah, I'll take Scattergooboo. I think he's, I don't know. There's some Kyron Williams to his game, but he's more physical. So, it's like, I don't know, Isaiah Pacheco meets Kyron Williams or something like that.
Well, again, and I've always said this on the show, we're all landing spot dependent. Where you work, who you work for. This guy could actually jump up ahead of like a guy like Caleb Johnson. If we hate Caleb Johnson's landing spot, I could see it. For the audio audience, if you're watching on Player Profiler, you can obviously just look at the screen or go back to YouTube and check it out. But if you're driving, you may want to recap. So real quick, I'll recap the first round and then we'll jump into the second round. But 101, Ashton Genty, everyone knows that. 102, Cam Ward. 103, Omarion Hampton. 104, Tet McMillan. 105, Tyler Warren. 106, Colston Loveland. 107, Travion Henderson. 108, Quinshawn Judkins. 109, Luther Burden. 110, Travis Hunter. 111, Caleb Johnson, and 112, Cam Scatabo. So Dan, we've wrapped up round one. Maybe you could use a little help before your rookie drafts. Maybe you could use it with the breakout finder.
Oh, the breakout finder is live. That's right. A lot of breakout models out there, but we started it all. The best and brightest minds coming up with the definitive breakout probabilities for running backs, wide receivers in this rookie class. It's $5 to download the wide receiver breakouts, the running back breakouts, but also proprietary stats available only on the breakout finder, including dynamic score for wide receivers, teammate score, level of competition. You can access the full stat database, plus many advanced metrics from PlayerProfiler, all there, right there on your phone, in the App Store, on Google Play. And that 2025 class is live.
All the way live, right there in your App Store. It's the Breakout Finder. I think rounds 2 through 5, depends on how many rounds your rookie draft has, is where the Breakout Finder really becomes a value. I'm on the clock, the 201. This is stealing. I should have taken him. I should have taken him where I took Travion Henderson, because in a superflex tight end premium, quarterbacks are worth their weight in gold. For him to fall this far, that's on me. I own that. I'm going Sanders, Shadur Sanders. I don't love him, but I'm starting to appreciate him more because I'm starting to hear more of the non-fantasy people speak about him. You know, Mark Schlereth is an old salty NFL veteran. You know, he's a commentator now. He spends 17 weeks with 2 teams on Friday watching practice, and he thinks that Shadur Sanders is really, really good. And, you know, talking about how accurate he is and about his eyes and his feet. And I'm just like, man, you know, he's probably never going to be valued in a dynasty startup as a QB1. But man, he's the kind of guy like Bo Nix last year, Jared Goff, you know, Kirk Cousins, a guy who could just give you QB9, QB10 on an entire season just because he knows how to put the ball in play. I don't like the Andy Dalton comp. I don't think the Derek Carr comp is great, but it's funny because Derek Carr, it's rumored that he may need shoulder surgery and can miss the entire 2025 season. That came out on Friday, and the Saints draft at 7. What a great insurance policy. What a great long-term, you know, solution for a team that, you know, be honest, if Derek Carr didn't have a bajillion-dollar dead cap number, he wouldn't be a Saint right now. And I think the absolutely tippy top of his range would be a Drew Brees, but I think you'd really like him in a Kellen Moore offense. So I'm going to go Shadur Sanders and feel like that's the steal of the draft so far.
I like it. And I would comp him to a Geno Smith. You know, imagine if Geno Smith had actually broken out early, hadn't been stuck on the Jets, and, you know, how many quarterbacks have we seen go to the Jets to die? All right.
Several. 2 of them have wound up in they've resurrected their career and wound up in Seattle. We'll see how things go in the great Northwest for Sammy. Who you got at 202?
Yeah, let's stick with the theme of quarterback. This is the point where I want to throw a dart on Jackson Dart. I think, you know, again, this is a spot because it's super flex. You know, go ahead and grabbing this quarterback here. He's kind of a weird guy to evaluate. You know, I would not be surprised if he totally flamed out. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the best quarterback in this year's rookie crop. So he could go either way. I'm going to call him Carson Wentz.
Oh man, I'm going to be I don't know, you know, Carson Wentz, you know, it's like, it's amazing how fast, and I've always liked Carson Wentz. It's amazing how fast the league comes at people. I mean, before he tore his ACL, I think it was like week 15 or 16, he was legitimately the betting favorite to be the MVP that season. And then here comes Nick Foles, and they go win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and like it all unraveled. Then you know they drafted Jalen Hurts, and the rest, as they say, is history. I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball on him. I see a little Ryan Tannehill, and you know, time is a flat circle, and I could easily see Jackson Dart really flourishing with Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh. You'd give him DK Metcalf. You'd give him George Pickens. You give him Pat Fryermuth. You give him a better than average offensive mind. So I don't hate that at all. I'm going right to my guy. I'm going RJ Harvey. He is my number one exposure player on the Origins Fast Draft. I did a bunch of those. I got to get back to a state where that is all legal for me. But RJ Harvey, my boy Cody Carpentier, really loves him. I mean, I'm looking at him. He's not a big guy. He's 5'8", but did you know he was also a quarterback?
Yes, I did. I do remember hearing that. So yeah, that's a kind of a cool fact about him, and that's one of the reasons why he's such an old prospect.
And my comp for him, it was one of my favorite players, and I'm going to butcher his first name because I only remember, was it Devonta Freeman, who played for the Atlanta Falcons, had the long dreads, had a couple of nice top 5 for an entire season, RB seasons. I mean, just a really good player. If you were to get that Devonta Freeman type career arc out of him, I think you'd love it, especially in the second round. He's my guy. If he does what I think he can do as a rookie, they will be shipping. I may not have been eligible to draft in Indiana, but they'll be mailing the check for Dynasty Origins, the rookie tournament, to Indiana to me. My number one exposure player. I am going RJ Harvey, Dan.
Love it. That's great. And I am really torn on these two. One of them just got mentioned in the chat, but I think I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with Bashal Tutin. And that's a risky pick just because, the NFL doesn't seem to like him as well as I do, which always gives me a lot of pause. But, man, that guy was super productive, and he's just absolutely smoking fast. He can catch passes. I mean, I'm struggling to see what the NFL doesn't see in him, other than they don't like where he played college, I guess. But he is, I hate to bring this name out because, Jamal Charles is a name that's, wow, what a fantastic player. But as a prospect, Charles went in the 3rd round, which is where Bashal Tutin is likely to go. And, nobody expected Charles to do what he did. So I think that actually makes him kind of a perfect comp for Tutin.
From an athletic standpoint, I could see it. And if you were to get even, I don't know, like a third, 2/3 of a Jamal Charles season out of him at any point in his dynasty career, you are way ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do it. A guy that I'm not super high on, but I think this is a great spot to get in because this is kind of a dead spot in the draft. I'm going to go Emeka Egbuka. And I think his best comp is his former Ohio State teammate in Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that's the role he'll play. I think he'll be more of a 2 in the NFL than he will be a wide receiver 1. But if he actually falls this far in dynasty drafts, I think this is a great spot to get him. I probably would have taken him ahead of Tutin, but outside of that, man, if you're getting guys like in a super flex tight end premium, if you're getting guys like Sanders, Dart, Harvey, Egbuka, Tutin in this range, you can see the value of those second round picks, Dan. So any thoughts on Egbuka before you make 206?
Yeah, I like the pick there. Like I say, I was kind of going back and forth, but since he just got mentioned in the chat, I figured I'd go the other way. And I think of him as kind of a deluxe size Tyler Lockett, sticking right in Seattle there, I guess. But, I think he's got kind of that same skill set, but a little bit of a bigger player. So I think he's likely to succeed in the NFL. So, this is a great, great value. Oh, man.
It gets tough in the second round. There's good value, but like you're trying to tap dance around landmines.
Right. And we've kind of hit the point where I think it's all sort of a big tier here where, pick your favorite flavor, really. So I probably wouldn't argue with, who goes here versus who ends up going at 212. I mean, I think they're kind of all in the same tier. But I'm just gonna go with Jaden Noel. I think that he is a really good slot guy. I think he's kind of like hitting a double. You're probably not getting a home run with Noel, but I think he's going to be a productive pro. He's a guy that I see as kind of is somewhere between a Marvin Mims and a Rashee Rice, as far as how he plays. And I just really like what he did at Iowa State there. He and Higgins made a great tag team, and he just works underneath so well.
Well, if you're watching on Player Profile, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, I've got to look for him. This is my guy. I've made my declaration. Jaden Higgins is my guy, and he's not my wide receiver one. I've said my wide receiver one in this class is Luther Burden, but this guy has just grown on me. I mean, big guy, tremendous athlete, 6'4". I love his Player Profiler comp of Allen Robinson. That would be perfect. That would be absolutely perfect for me. Somewhere between Allen Robinson, Mike Evans, maybe Devontae Adams a little bit. A little bit bigger than Devontae Adams, but just a kind of guy that
T. Higgins, maybe.
T. Higgins. I saw someone comped him to Vincent Jackson, R.I.P. Played for the Chargers back in the day. So many good ranges of outcomes. I think this is a great, and I do because of the size and the athleticism. He, unlike, like you, I like the term you used earlier. Ibuka was a double. Jalen Noel's a double. This guy could be striking out looking, or it could be a grand slam out of the park. But to get him at 207, I think is a steal. Dan, I will throw it to you for 208.
All right, I'm going to make a pick that totally frightens me because it's just he's going to go in the first round. I'm almost positive, but I worry a lot that his speed is what pushed him up there, and I'm not sure that he's got the the analytics to back it up. But give me Matthew Golden here because you know what, we're going to swing for the fences.
I actually made this comp on a previous show, and Cody Carpentier was in the chat, and he said this was a diabolical comp. But I'm like, dude, go to Player Profiler, search Henry Ruggs. Both guys 5'11". One guy weighs 191 pounds. One guy weighs 188 pounds. One guy ran a 4.27. One guy ran a 4.29. Henry Ruggs was the first wide receiver off the board at 112 to the Raiders in the 2020 NFL draft. There is a real world where Matthew Golden could be the first wide receiver off the board at 112 to the Dallas Cowboys. Like I said earlier, time is a flat circle, and it all comes back around. That's my low-end comp for him. My high-end comp, and this guy went, I think, in the third round of the NFL draft, but I think what you're hoping for is T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton, another indie guy. We've already talked about Dallas Clark earlier, but dude, T.Y. Hilton could beat you deep. He got a little bit older. He was able to. He finished the season as a wide receiver one time. So that's a huge range of outcomes for Matthew Golden. But I'm going to go there, and those are my comps. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I like that. I said Santana Moss. That's going back a ways, but
that's very fair. I always like saying again, some of these comps. It's like they can't all be Tyreek Hill,
right?
And they can't all be Jerry Rice. It's like sometimes you gotta go with what you see. All right, I'm gonna go back to running back. I'm gonna go. I don't love it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pull a fast one on you. I'm going to go Elijah Arroyo. It's tied in premium. Probably should have went maybe a hair early. I think maybe we took our eye off of the tight end premium ball. a little Evan Ingram to his game. Uh, I think he could be another one of these really athletic, oversized slot wide receivers that potentially fizzle the way we see so many have. But also, too, it really comes down to where he goes. And he comes from a school with a track record of producing tight ends, University of Miami. Like, I wouldn't hate it if he were to fall to, say, like the third round to Tennessee. You know, who's the tight end there? Chigakonkwo.
Yes.
Nothing against him, but, you know, how do you make a quarterback, a rookie quarterback, comfortable, bring in a familiar target? I'm going to lean into the tight end premium, and I'm going to go Elijah Arroyo. My comp is I'm going to stick with Evan Ingram.
Okay, I like that. I think he's got a little, maybe Isaiah Likely to his game as well. But I don't know. He I think is a tight end that really could go either way. You know, I could see him just taking years to amount to anything, and I could see him just, you know, absolutely bursting onto the scene too.
You mean the David and Njoku corollary?
Yeah. Well, you know, if they don't, you know, sign Austin Hooper or whatever, and then put him on the shelf for 5 years or 3 years, whatever it was, then maybe he can move a little faster than Njoku. But yeah, that was a terrible, terrible run out for Njoku until he finally got the job back all to himself again, and then he looked quite good. So I'm gonna go, man. I'm gonna go Alec Ayomanor.
Well, I guess I won't be going Alec Ayomanor with my next pick. What are you seeing? See, this is why I bring Dan on. Dan pushes me. Dan challenges me. We do this shit to each other all the time. Dan and I are in like 4 or 5 leagues together, and this literally gets on my nerves. It's like I have a guy, I've got him queued up, I've got my comp ready, but what are you seeing with Ayomanor that you like, especially being the high stakes player that you are?
Well, to start with, I like the fact that he's probably going in the second round, and nobody's paying any attention to him. I mean, in best ball, he's ridiculously cheap. You can get him, you know, like 17th, 18th round, which is just nuts. I think he's got some Chris Godwin to his game. You know, he's a nice big receiver who can play, you know, wherever you need him to play. He could play in the slot. He can play, you know, he can play the X or Z if you really need him to. You know, he's just he's a really good receiver. Coming out of a program, you know, that just, I don't think many players are going to get drafted out of Stanford. So I like him. I think he's just a value here.
I would agree 100%. What I liked about him was that he's got a huge range of outcomes. He's again kind of like a Jaden Higgins. I mean, I could, and again, landing spot dependent, but man, in the right landing spot, I could see him taking over. I could also see him being like a David Bell and just absolutely busting the hell right out of a league. So I'm up at the 111, and this is the part where I would gamble on a quarterback. And I think it would come down to 2, depending on who got the better draft capital or the situation I liked. But a guy that's getting a ton of run right now is Tyler Shuck. And that's how I've heard it pronounced, guys. A lot of you guys beat me up for my not so good pronunciation of names. I get it. But I think this guy's probably got a shot to be, I think it's 33 or 34 overall to Cleveland if they don't trade back up to try to get Sanders. And if he goes that early, it's like you got to take a swing, right, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great structural pick here too, for exactly the reason you mentioned. I mean, you know, there's a good chance if he goes to Cleveland, he could end up starting games this year. You know, we all like Joe Burrow because he's, you know, basically, you know, like white Jameis Winston these days. All he does is just chuck the ball. He's a, you know, fuck it and chuck it kind of quarterback these days. But, you know, we've got Kenny Pickett there too. You know, none of these guys are going to strike fear in the hearts of a rookie quarterback, you know, and a rookie saying there's no way I can compete with these guys. So
Oh, and my comp real quick, I was going to throw a little Matt Hasselbeck out there. You know, Matt Hasselbeck went in the sixth round of the NFL draft. I don't think Shuck's going to stick around that long. He was in a long line of quarterbacks to come during, past, like in, AD. It's like post Andrew Luck. So post Luck, he's been in a long line of guys that we've tried. All right, Dan, you get the last. You get the last pick. I've got to make an adjustment here, but go ahead.
Okay. I think, you know what? Since it is Superflex, I think I'm going to go Jalen Milroe here. This is a pick that's not going to pay off this year at all. It's a pick you got to be really patient with. But again, if you're, if you finish first or second in your league, you're probably set at quarterback, and having a guy that can just, bust out in a big way, as in, Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson or somebody like that. I don't think he's even as good a passer as Fields. Richardson, maybe. I don't know. I'd still probably take Richardson over him as a passer right now. But man, oh man, that guy's got wheels, and if he can ever figure out how to play quarterback, he would be fantastic.
I could see him going to like all kinds of different spaces, like what would he look like in Pittsburgh? I think if they wanted to run that experiment, maybe they bring Justin Fields back, but a tremendous guy that needs work. This is the kind of spot where he could go, and you wanted to, there's not a whole lot of QB whisperers out there. Let's say hypothetically Derek Carr is healthy. I know they've got Spencer Rattler there, but they could bring him in, kind of guy that you can put on the shelf, and just kind of like we do with our taxi squads, right? You draft a guy, you draft him for upside, you just throw him on the taxi for a couple of years. I think that's a great pick, and because of the wheels and the fantasy points, Dan, that's where we earn our fantasy points, but you and I earn our keep over at PlayerProfiler. What's coming up the rest of the week? When's your next article? What's everything going on with you?
Yeah, next article should be coming out in the next few days. I'm just kind of putting the finishing touches on it, but I'm looking at some players that might get traded between now and the NFL draft, or during the NFL draft, or maybe even right after the NFL draft. But, I think the trades will be somewhat draft related, and just what, how do we want to react to them dynasty wise and best ball wise? And, that's not always the same thing, but, I think it's important to be out there and be thinking about what might happen and how you would react. And in some cases, especially in dynasty, you can kind of, like if you think Kyle Pitts is going to get traded, now is a really good time to start trying to acquire some Kyle Pitts. Because his price has probably never been lower than it is right now. So, that's kind of the way that I'm looking at things there on that article.
Dan is an absolute must follow everywhere. You got to be checking out Player Profiler. He's dropping articles all the time. He's also a fun follow on X at Overhyped Sleeper. Drop the last E in Sleeper. It just goes PR, no E in there. Check him out. Real quick, I forgot. I want to recap the second round because people do not like it when I do not recap the second round. 201, Shador Sanders. 202, Jackson Dart. 203, RJ Harvey. 204, Basil Tootin. 205, Emeka Ibuka. 206, Jalen Noel. 207, Jaden Higgins. 208, Matthew Golden. 209, Elijah Arroyo. 210, Alec Manor. 211, Tyler Shuck. And 212, Jalen Milroe. Dan, we've got some dynasty rookie drafts coming up, and it's actually an interesting format. You and your old co-host, JD, who has redrafted himself, who has, rebranded himself the Draft Room Baller. You guys still run a team in a league, and then I had a team, and it's just like you have to start paring back some commitments. So I gave up my team, and then I'm going to co-run with Jerry. So maybe you and me and Jerry and JD can come up with some kind of like side bet, of what we do
Yeah.
in this upcoming season. Now, I've got a lot of work to do. Jerry's team is hot, moist garbage. But the problem is that when you leave an orphan, like my team was really good. It had won the championship 1 year and then got second another year in 3 years. So it was first, an off year, a second. I'm handing it off. And it's good to have you on, buddy. It's good to have you on. Check Dan out everywhere. Guys, next week, I'm going to go ahead and say it because I know I'm going to put it out there because I don't think anything's going to come up. Next Sunday is Easter. Hop on over to Player Profiler because our guest is going to be none other than Alan Seslowski. Who doesn't want to spend time with Alan? Alan is off the rails. Again, just like Dan, someone that I love to get some perspective on. Dan, man, thank you so much for joining us, and keep crushing it over on the written word and the podcast word, Player Profiler.
Yeah, appreciate it, Randall. It's always so much fun to get on and just chop it up with you. And I'm really looking forward to it. I did not know you were going to be partnering up with Jerry. So now I'm really looking forward to getting that league going again and getting the rookie draft and all that, because we are going to have a dispersal draft there.
Well, Jerry should probably, I'm going to get with Jerry. He should probably enter it because like I said, but Jerry's hard-headed. It's hard-headed, but you know what? I'm going to get that boy back on the straight and narrow. He should be back next week. He got caught up at the real job tonight, but look forward to doing battling with you in the upcoming rookie drafts, Dan. Thanks for coming on. Guys, have a great week. Check out everything that we mentioned, the Breakout Finder, the FFPC. If you do a fast draft and you're signing up, use promo code WarZone. It'll get you a $50 deposit match. I think that's all the plugs. We're out. See you guys.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.